The origins of human existence have long fascinated scientists and researchers, with questions about our evolution, how we came to be, and why we are the way we are. Recently, a theory has emerged that suggests a symbiotic virus may have played a significant role in the evolution of a branch of our species. This virus, which is believed to have infected humans around 150,000 years ago, is thought to have been dependent on iron and proteins from hemoglobin in human blood, but in return, it rejuvenated the host constantly by replacing old dying cells with exact replicas of new cells, thus granting the host immortality. According to this theory, the symbiotic virus would have initially entered the human population through a chance mutation in an animal virus. As humans evolved and migrated across the globe, the virus would have evolved alongside them, becoming more and more specialized in its dependence on iron and hemoglobin. Iron is a crucial element for many organisms, including humans. It plays a critical role in the production of red blood cells, which are responsible for carrying oxygen around the body. However, iron is also highly reactive and can be toxic in high concentrations. To avoid this, humans store iron in a protein called ferritin, which is found in the liver and spleen. The symbiotic virus, which infected humans, is thought to have evolved to exploit this reliance on iron. By infecting human cells and hijacking the iron from hemoglobin, the virus would have been able to grow and replicate. However, in doing so, it would have caused damage to the host cells, leading to cell death and aging. To counteract this, the virus is believed to have evolved a mechanism to replace dying cells with exact replicas of new cells. This would have prevented aging and kept the host perpetually youthful, effectively granting it immortality. This mechanism is thought to have relied on the virus's ability to manipulate the host's DNA, allowing it to replicate new cells with perfect accuracy. Over time, the virus and its host would have become so dependent on each other that they would have effectively merged into a single organism. The virus would have been able to survive indefinitely, sustained by the iron and hemoglobin from the host's blood, while the host would have enjoyed the benefits of eternal youth and immortality. The implications of this theory are profound, and if proven true, it would completely change our understanding of human evolution. It would mean that our species owes its very existence to a symbiotic relationship with a virus, and that our biology has been shaped by this relationship over millennia. However, there are many unanswered questions and challenges to this theory. For example, it is unclear how the virus would have evolved to become so specialized in its dependence on iron and hemoglobin. It is also unclear how the host's immune system would have tolerated the constant presence of the virus, and why the virus did not become a pathogen that caused disease and death. Despite these challenges, the idea of a symbiotic virus that granted immortality is a fascinating one, and it highlights the complex interplay between viruses and their hosts. Viruses are often thought of as purely parasitic, taking from their hosts and causing harm, but this theory suggests that there may be a more nuanced relationship at play. In recent years, scientists have become increasingly interested in the role that viruses may have played in human evolution. For example, it is now known that a significant portion of the human genome is made up of viral DNA, which has been incorporated into our genome over millennia. This viral DNA is thought to have played a role in shaping our biology and may even have contributed to our evolution as a species. The theory of the symbiotic virus that granted immortality is a compelling one, but it is important to note that it is still just a theory. Or is it? Symbiotic hominids. Of the hominid species that evolved alongside the lineage of Homo sapien, few survived for a long As the migrations of proto-humans moved into the Middle East and Europe, the indigenous populations were raped, murdered, and eaten to extinction, alongside hundreds of mammalian species. Yet despite this, two groups of nocturnal hominids known as Homo lupus and Homo vampirus did survive. They appeared to stem from the lineage of Australopithecus, our shared ancestor, perhaps most likely, Neanderthal, a hominid cousin which coexisted for a short time with Homo erectus. As the swathes of humans began to envelop the continent, most Neanderthal were wiped out, yet it appears that at some point a group encountered a symbiotic virus. This virus may have originated in another species of mammal or indeed in the water supply. Either way, the effect was remarkable. It did not kill the host, yet developed two distinct subgroups of hominid. Perhaps those infected separated into tribes that no longer interacted, but the virus instigated changes at a genetic level, unique to each party. What was identical in both groups was the development of anatomical traits equipped to feed the virus's constant dependency on iron and protein. This thirst was the only negative aspect of the infection. Over the next 150,000 years, the virus wove itself into the very essence of each species, thus distinct subspecies grew. Both appeared to have thrived. Like their human counterparts, during the Ice Ages they hunted, and their diets were predominantly meat. Homo lupus were nomadic, yet for a time settled in Mesopotamia, and are directly responsible for the birth of agriculture, whilst Homo vampirus traveled east to what would become Mongolia, where they became subterranean. Both species developed culture quickly, surpassing humans yet remaining somewhat secretive. Homo lupus was hunted to near extinction by warring human parties wishing to settle in the Middle East. Their nomadic lifestyle took them north, where pockets survived. Vampirus closed off from the threat of humans within the Altai Mountains, flourished, and became the most successful civilization on Earth. Behavioral biologist and amateur archaeologist, American Edward Harrell traveled to the Middle East to excavate ruins in what was Mesopotamia, searching for the roots of agriculture. What he found there was evidence of a far older civilization, which appeared to be a form of early hominid unlike that of man. Obsessed with understanding how and when this culture disappeared from the face of the earth, he tracked folklore and legend, piecing together evidence that members of this species may have indeed survived. With first-hand accounts from eyewitnesses and shreds of physical evidence, he began to focus his efforts on tracking this elusive creature, eventually discovering a small colony in the forests of Scandinavia. The species was dubbed Homo lupus, due to its physical similarities to the common wolf. It shared no biological traits with this species, yet the presence of an elongated snout, full body hair, large ears, and sizable claws gave rise to the werewolf of myth and legend. In truth, Homo lupus is a secretive, nomadic mammal that distances itself from human populations. Harrell eventually caught and dissected a number of specimens and discovered that the creature carried a transferable pathogen in its saliva, which could infect other hominid species, inserting genetic traits into the DNA of the host. The virus would adapt the victim to suit its needs, yet at a great cost. Most died from infection or eventually became Homo lupus. The virus was named the lupus strain, and the condition lycanthropy. Edward was attacked in the year 1820 by a male lycanthrope and infected himself. He would spend the next 3 years trying to source a cure. This event had a profound effect on his life, choosing to adopt a much more ethical approach to his studies. He met Thomas Merrill in 1830 at the university on Gower Street. Werewolves, also known as lycanthropes, have been a part of folklore and legend for centuries. While the existence of werewolves is a topic of debate, there have been numerous instances throughout history where people have reported encountering these creatures. Here are a few notable instances where people have claimed to have encountered werewolves or dogmen. The Beast of Gévaudan. In the mid-1700s, a series of attacks occurred in the French province of Gévaudan, where numerous people were killed by a large wolf-like creature. The beast was said to be larger than a normal wolf, with reddish-brown fur and a distinctive mark on its chest. Despite numerous attempts to kill the creature, it continued to elude capture and remained a source of fear for the people of the region. The Michigan Dog Man. In the late 1800s, sightings began to be reported of a large, bipedal creature with a dog-like head in the woods of northern Michigan. The creature became known as the Michigan Dog Man and has been the subject of numerous sightings and reports over the years. The Beast of Bray Road. In the 1990s, reports began to circulate of a large, wolf-like creature that was seen near Bray Road in Wisconsin. The creature was said to walk on two legs and have a face that was a cross between a wolf and a human. The Beast of Bray Road has become a popular subject of cryptozoology, with numerous sightings and reports still being made to this day. The Rougarou. In Cajun folklore, the Rougarou is a creature that is said to roam the swamps of Louisiana. It is described as a large, wolf-like creature that can shift between human and animal forms. The Rougarou is said to be a punishment for those who break the rules of Lent, and it is said that a person can become a Rougarou by failing to follow the rules. The Werewolf of Allariz. In the early 1800s, a man named Manuel Blanco Romasanta was accused of being a werewolf after several people in the Spanish village of Allariz were found dead. Romasanta claimed that he had the ability to transform into a wolf and that he had killed the people in question while in his wolf form. He was eventually convicted and sentenced to death, although his claims of being a werewolf have been debated by historians and scholars ever since. While these instances may seem unbelievable to some, they serve as a testament to the enduring fascination that people have with werewolves and other supernatural creatures. Whether they are real or not, the idea of these mysterious and dangerous beings continues to capture the imaginations of people around the world. Species: Homo vampirus, the vampire. The vampire is an offshoot of Australopithecus, along with the lycanthrope. Homo lupus became symbiotic hominids, both carry transferable immunodeficiency pathogens. Viruses abundant in the blood and saliva that can be transferred to human and non-human hosts, where these unique genetic traits are inserted into the DNA of the infected, taking on the characteristics of each species. Homo vampirus is a nocturnal hominid with a huge dependency on iron and protein. Their anatomy is highly adapted, their bones are flexible and incredibly light, rather like a bird, allowing them to move with great agility. They have a pair of retractable cuspids in the upper mandible which descends when the mouth is flexed open. These carry an anticoagulant that allows the species to feed freely. When feeding, vampire will eat all major organs for sustenance. Blood is predominantly a water source. Their culture did develop many alternative forms of nourishment to quell their body's need for a constant source of iron and protein. Their bodies are susceptible to light exposure due to a nocturnal lifestyle, but myth has painted a rather extreme image of their Achilles heel. In reality, the vampire are almost immortal. Their cells constantly rejuvenate and DNA does not degrade like that of a human. Some vampire is thought to be up to 40,000 years old, with positive mutations and adaptation within a lifetime. This fascinating result of the symbiotic relationship with the vampirus strain was of great interest to many evolutionary biologists. Their cultural practices and the ascent of their civilization are similarly remarkable. Vampires have been a popular topic of folklore and legend for centuries. While the existence of vampires is a topic of debate, there have been numerous instances throughout history where people have reported encountering these mysterious beings. Here are a few notable instances where people have claimed to have encountered vampires. Mercy Brown. In the late 1800s, a young woman named Mercy Brown died of tuberculosis in Exeter, Rhode Island. Her family, along with other townspeople, began to believe that she was a vampire and had been the cause of several recent deaths in the area. They exhumed her body and found that it had not decomposed as they expected it to, which they saw as a sign that she was a vampire. They then burned her hard and fed the ashes to her sick brother in an attempt to cure him. Arnold Poli. In the early 1700s, a Serbian man named Arnold Poli claimed to have been attacked by a vampire while serving in the army. He later moved back to his hometown and died shortly thereafter. After his death, several people in the town reported seeing him walking around at night and claimed that he had become a vampire. The villagers exhumed his body and found that it had not decomposed, which they saw as further proof of his vampirism. Peter Plagajowicz. In the late 1600s, a man named Peter Plagajowicz died in a small village in Serbia. Shortly after his death, several people in the village claimed to have seen him walking around at night and attacking people. The villagers exhumed his body and found that it had not decomposed, which they saw as evidence of his vampirism. They then drove a stake through his heart to kill him. Highgate Vampire. In the 1970s, reports began to circulate of a vampire in Highgate Cemetery in London, England. Several people claimed to have seen a tall, dark figure with glowing eyes and a cape lurking in the cemetery at night. These reports sparked a wave of vampire hysteria in the area, and several groups of vampire hunters descended on the cemetery in an attempt to find the creature. Blagojevich family. In the early 20th century, a Serbian family named Blagojevich claimed to have been terrorized by a vampire. Several members of the family had died under mysterious circumstances, and they believed that a deceased neighbor, who they claimed had been a vampire, was responsible. The family exhumed the neighbor's body and found that it had not decomposed, which they saw as proof of his vampirism. They then burned the body and scattered the ashes to rid themselves of the vampire's curse. Around 1836, a cleric by the name of Abramo was called to perform an exorcism in the small town of Celia, 50 miles outside Rome. Here he was confronted with a child that displayed no supernatural affliction, besides heavy wounds to her neck and stomach. She soon became vampire, the product of a highly adapted immunodeficiency virus that had evolved a symbiotic relationship with an offshoot of early man. The adapted bone structure created the perfect hunter, but also immortality, through spontaneous cell regeneration allowed a unique opportunity for a race of great thinkers, to gain a wealth of knowledge like no other. The Vampire nation built the city of Thenes within a hollowed mountain in Mongolia around 40,000 BCE. Abramo lived and studied here for many years, becoming a loyal patron. He was charged with the challenge of hunting down blood thieves, those of the vampire race who left the city in search of human victims. Abramo traveled with a number of other hunters, both human and hemophage, to hunt and kill these feral creatures. While these instances may seem far-fetched to some, they serve as a testament to the enduring fascination that people have with vampires. Whether they are real or not, the idea of these mysterious and supernatural creatures continues to capture the imaginations of people around the world. In 1890, Ernesto Sabatea, a priest-turned-revolutionary biologist created a substance known as the escherichia compound. He used this in his experiments on skin grafting and found that it removed the common problem of rejection. His research garnered a great deal of interest from the scientific community, yet his peers within the Catholic Church were not so impressed, and he was soon excommunicated. He took this very personally, and it has been suggested that his research only began to veer towards fringe science with the advent of his dismissal. His work focused on the crossbreeding and bonding of different species, with a particular focus on discovering the essence of life, the elusive signature of God. During the early 20th century he was drawn to the work of English biologist Thaddeus Bellacles, whose own nefarious work had earned him a death sentence. Ernesto traveled to England and recovered the body of Bellacles, using his own techniques to bring him back to life. They found a kindred spirit in each other and traveled to Europe, manufacturing cures for common diseases and selling the patents to fund their obsessions, eventually catching the attention of Grigory Rasputin. He employed their macabre abilities to make him impervious to death. A man hell-bent on controlling the Russian establishment, Rasputin soon garnered the scorn of the Tsar's cousin. Knowing that his life was in danger, he pursued the duo, after learning of their abilities to control and reignite life. They were successful and Rasputin walked away from stabbings, gunshot wounds, and drowning. They would continue to work together for many years until Ernesto perfected his procedures. This led him to establish a self-governed island in the Adriatic Sea, where he continued his vile experiments. It is thought that he eventually died at the hands of one of his creations. Hypothesis. A hypothesis is an assumption, an idea that is proposed for the sake of an argument so that it can be tested to see if it might be true. It is important to note that any hypothesis regarding the origins of the COVID-19 virus in Wuhan, China should be based on available evidence and scientific knowledge. However, as there is no conclusive evidence yet to support any specific theory, any hypothesis remains purely speculative. With that said, it is possible to construct a hypothetical scenario in which the Wuhan Institute of Virology, WIV, was experimenting with bat viruses to study their potential benefits for human health. One possible motive for such an experiment could be to find ways to increase longevity in humans and cure incurable diseases. In this hypothetical scenario, the WIV may have been seeking to create a virus that would target specific genes or proteins in the human body to promote cellular regeneration, prevent aging, or repair damaged tissues. The scientists may have been inspired by the fact that some bat species have an unusually long lifespan and appear to be resistant to certain diseases, despite being carriers of many potentially harmful viruses. To achieve this goal, the WIV may have been manipulating bat viruses in a laboratory setting, using techniques such as genetic engineering or synthetic biology to modify their genetic code. The goal would have been to create a virus that would be harmless to humans, but which would also trigger the desired biological effects. If such an experiment were successful, it is possible that China could have gained a significant advantage in the field of biotechnology and medical science. A virus that could extend the human lifespan or cure incurable diseases would be highly valuable both commercially and strategically. It would put China at the forefront of medical research and development, and would potentially allow it to dominate the global market for anti-aging and regenerative medicine. It would have undoubtedly cemented power-hungry China's claim to be a superpower in the 21st century.
的中国共产党万岁！伟大的中国人民万岁！
The supposed secret think tank of Nazi Germany studying old Vedic books on Vimanas and successfully creating anti-gravitational crafts. It is an interesting topic to explore within the context of countries seeking to dominate and gain power. The concept of Vimanas, or flying machines, can be traced back to ancient Vedic texts from India, dating back thousands of years. These texts describe the existence of flying machines that were capable of traveling great distances and were powered by advanced technology. Some enthusiasts believe that Nazi Germany had a secret think tank that studied these texts and successfully created anti-gravitational crafts based on this technology. The Nazis were interested in advanced technology and sought to develop new weapons and machinery. One example is the V-2 rocket, a weapon that was developed by the Nazis during World War II and was the world's first long-range ballistic missile. The development of this weapon was led by a team of scientists and engineers, including Wernher von Braun, who later went on to work for NASA in the United States. Similarly, there are claims that the United States of America reverse-engineered a fallen UFO and created sophisticated technology to dominate the 20th century. This theory is often linked to the Roswell incident of 1947, where a UFO supposedly crashed in New Mexico. While the U.S. government officials claimed that the object was a weather balloon, many conspiracy theorists believe that it was an extraterrestrial craft that was covered up by the government. The United States has a long history of investing in and developing advanced technology for military purposes. From the Manhattan Project, which developed the atomic bomb, to the development of stealth technology and drones, the U.S. has consistently sought to stay ahead of its rivals in terms of military technology. China too has experimented with creating an engineered virus from bats to potentially dominate the global market for anti-aging and regenerative medicine. This claim is based on the hypothesis that the Wuhan Institute of Virology was experimenting with bat viruses to study their potential benefits for human health, as discussed in the previous section. In all these examples, we see how countries are willing to invest significant resources and take risks to gain power and dominance in various fields, whether it be military technology or medical research. However, this pursuit of power often comes at a cost, and there is a fine line between progress and ethical concerns. For example, the development of nuclear weapons during World War II brought about a significant shift in the global balance of power. But it also created the risk of nuclear annihilation and continues to pose a threat to human civilization. Similarly, any attempt to create a virus in a laboratory setting comes with the risk of accidental release or deliberate use as a bioweapon. In conclusion, while the idea of countries seeking to dominate and gain power through the development of advanced technology and scientific research is not new, it is important to consider the ethical implications and potential risks associated with such pursuits. While progress and innovation are important for human development, they must be balanced with responsibility and a commitment to the common good. All of this doesn't even remotely flash in the power-hungry minds of people who run these countries, who use whatever means necessary, even at the cost of dispensable human life, to dominate over one another for world power.